What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Devil's Customs and Creatures. Today I'll be participating in Bill Making Stuff's Big Bot Bash. I have to say that I started this robot without the intentions of making a video, so there is a lot of still photos, but I do have some video as well, so I hope you'll enjoy it. This is the story of Wallace, a bot that was repaired by Wally to help clean up the Earth about 3 years after Wally came back. Wallace started life as a computer drive cage, some plastic, and 2 cut-down powdered drink containers. While looking for treads for Wallace, I came across this Mecha Blaster at Goodwill for $6.99. I knew I wanted to use the treads and the wheels from it, and also there's a piece on the back, which ended up being the back portion of Wallace's box. Little did I know at the time that these treads would give me nightmares trying to attach them to the wheels afterwards. I had to cut them smaller to fit the model, and I gotta tell you, not much sticks to these. Here I'm just showing that I used some JB weld to stiffen up the neck portion. This piece fell off probably 4 or 5 times throughout the build, so I wanted to make sure that it was going to be nice and secure.
Wow.
I've seen a lot of builders use cardboard, and I've never used it too much, but I wanted to have something light, but also a little bit thick to make the front and back doors. The front door is hinged, the back door is not. This is just my process of tracing out the doors so that I can get those attached to the front and the back. And here's the finished product on the front. As you can see, it's hinged, and I also threw in a little bit of a RAM set on the front from a computer. Fast forward a bit, and now you can see we have the legs and the rear piece done. I ended up having to move these legs down further onto the box as they were too high, and with the treads on them, they would have blocked where I had to put the arms. The Wally bots have these tracks that their arms slide in and out on. So I wanted to kind of mimic that. Not both sides, I was testing it here as you can see, but mainly that main track that allows his arms to come back and forth. Of course, not on this model, but in the movie. So anyhow, here I am just dremeling those off, and you'll see throughout this process that there are bunch of little standoffs on these tracks that I had to snip off in order to make them sit correctly. Those pieces were from a copy machine, if I remember correctly. And as you can see, the vibrations from the Dremel keep causing the camera to turn, so there's a lovely shot of the tracks and my toolbox. I didn't like how the little pieces made the track stand off from the body. So here's where I was saying that I had to cut off all those little parts. Now that the tracks were in place, I had to tackle doing the arms, which I was not looking forward to doing. However, it came out pretty well. I used these 2 spice containers as the main parts of the arms. Because the caps had obvious ridges and hinges on them, I wanted to find a way to hide them to make them look more like they're cylinders versus obviously spice bottles. I did this by using EVA foam. Crafter's magic is what I call it. If you watch Bill making stuff, you know he uses this quite often. And I finally picked up some, and I gotta say it's great for hiding gaps and replicating metal and panels and all that other stuff. So here I am with the EVA foam, just measuring out the cap size, and I'm going to cut some strips. That way I can put this over the caps and hide some of those grooves that I don't want. Using some tubing from a shampoo bottle, I made the little pistons that will hold the hands. And as you can see here, I mean, they're not the prettiest, but the seam side is going on to the body. I did have to carve out a little bit of that track just to get that to sit right, so I can go ahead and glue that in. I hate to admit that this part took me probably the longest of the whole build. I went ahead and designed these hand parts in Photoshop and then grabbed an empty cereal box to use the cardboard to go ahead and make the hands. Just cardboard alone, of course, would be a little too thin, so once again we have EVA foam to the rescue, and you'll see how I combine those together to make pretty convincing hands. I was pretty happy with it. I knew I wanted to have one hand hanging down next to his side and another hand waving. So this is an example of the hand that's down by his side. I ended up using the wheels from that Mecha Blaster, which came very handy for this build. And as you can see, the EVA foam is on there. I used the straw here to make a hinge part and just threw 2 screws in the end just to make it look mechanical. And here we have both hands. This one here is the right hand that's just going to hang low. It is open, in an open position. And this will be the left hand that it will be in the waving position. Pretty pleased with how these came out. And now we move on to the eyes. And I always got to thank Dan Does for giving me the name of these.
I'm searching my little set of drawers here. Just have a little look. Cabochons, that's what we need. We need cabochons. 2 little glass half beads.
They work perfectly for any kind of eye. You can paint an eye on the back. Obviously for Wallace, we're just going to paint them black. The robots also have 3 screws on the eye portion. So I'm just going to use my pin vise here, make a few holes, and then get those screws inserted, and we'll see how that comes out. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, these are the treads. This material is like a hard, rubbery plastic, and I had to use copious amounts of my glue gun, super glue, Instaset, and eventually I ended up JB welding them. When I paint, it's way too involved, so I'd rather just give you guys a little montage here of some of the steps I took while painting Wallace. And if you remember, this is how Wallace started life. A computer drive box and a couple of cut down drink mix containers. And here's how he ended up. As you can see, I sadly don't have a turntable for something of this size. So here's a few photos of all the work that went into making Wallace. And I do have some special outdoor photos coming up that I think you guys will get a kick out of. I'd like to thank Bill Making Stuff for hosting this Big Bot Bash, and I hope you guys check out all the other builds. Should be hashtagged Big Bot Bash. And until the next one, be well.